thank you for having me. I'm Billy Seabrook. I'm the global head of design for Citi. I've spent about 8 months, 9 months in to my journey there. Before that, I was at eBay for about 3 years, and before that, a bunch of digital and marketing agencies. So I'd like to talk to you today about is what it takes to create remarkable experiences. So let me just dive right in. I've got a few slides here. I get a question a lot around what is customer experience, or what is experience design or service design. People want to sort of know what the philosophy is around it, the point of view. And the way I look at it is that it's simply and purely a value exchange, and a value exchange between brands and consumers. And when you do it right, you can actually create this effect where people feel that the more they give, the more they get back. And that's actually both from the consumer standpoint as well as the brand standpoint. So it becomes this sort of cyclical and symbiotic kind of relationship that deepens over time. So at its core, it's value. You know, customer experience is delivering value. But then when you think about it in more depth, there's different forms of value, and you can actually plot it across a continuum. So if you're more transactional in nature, and it's more just the basics, it becomes more of an ordinary experience, maybe less memorable. But if you start to add more emotion to those experiences and actually form a deeper bond with your customer, you can actually pull them along that continuum to become much more relational and actually drive more engagement and more loyalty with them. And that's how we define remarkable. So let's unpack that a little bit more. So when you go into value, there are 3 big drivers that can really drive that emotional relationship with customers and brands. And that's about having a strong purpose. It's having using data and intelligence to drive more personalization and relevance in the interactions. And then there's this whole notion of trust. Showing that you have people's back, showing that you can are their advocate, and always looking out for them. And if you can get all 3 of those right, you can create some remarkable experiences and really deepen that engagement with your customers. So that's how we think about it at Citi, and there are a bunch of brands I'll just go through here, just a few examples of very familiar brands I'm sure you've heard a lot about who are doing it well, and they really hit on these 3 drivers. So the first one I'll just dive into is Patagonia. So up on the left there, it's an abbreviation or a summation of their purpose, their brand mission. And for those of you who can look it up online, their brand purpose is around building great products, causing no unnecessary harm, and using business to drive solutions for the environmental crisis. So it's a fantastic mission. For those of you who are sort of brand fans of Patagonia, you can actually feel it in the way that they do their business. And it comes to life in really clear ways. They have programs like Worn Wear and Common Threads and Reuse and Recycle, all these programs that are very public-facing that actually encourage their customers not to keep buying the latest and greatest merchandise, but actually to use their existing products for as long as they possibly can. And when it breaks, or gets some sort of damage to it, just to replace it. And it encourages this effect on just waste. Their big goal is to remove and eliminate as much waste in the world as possible, which then translates to some of their actual business practices. So it's interesting, Patagonia has one of the largest repair facilities in the world. They actually put all of their investment into making sure that their products can be repaired, and they have that incredible customer service. So to reinforce that brand, but it also reinforces the fact that their products are such high quality that you may not even need that service. But it's there as a sort of a trust, to ensure that that we have their back. And then lastly, they really use their data in interesting ways internally. They look at how their entire supply chain works, and their CO2 usage and the waste that they carry, and even their water usage. And looking at all that data, they can figure out ways to optimize the way they operate as a company, but also the products that they innovate on and the materials they use. So it actually encourages innovation, but through the lens of sustainability and fixing the effects of climate change. So all of that together creates an amazing sort of mission that all customers of the brand can really feel attracted to. Next one, real quick, is Uber. another great service brand gets talked about quite a bit. Their real focus is on reliability. At the end of the day, they want to be the most reliable service out there. And they're obviously expanding from just transportation into delivery services and what have you. But at the core of what they want to do, it's about reliable efficiency. And that taps into a real customer need and a mindset around instant gratification, this notion of sharing versus owning, and really taps into that whole that trend that's happening now. And that carries through in the work that they do and how the service comes to life. So specifically on the reliability, when you think about data and how they use the intelligence of the brand, it's fascinating. They use pattern data around the supply and the demand of rides globally. And they can start to see patterns to figure out where the next demand is going to come from. And what they do is for their drivers, 15 minutes ahead of where they see the spikes, they predict the spikes happening, they'll send out reverse heat maps to their drivers so they can actually get a head start and get to the areas that are going to have the most demand, which is amazing. What that ultimately ends up happening is it reduces congestion, it actually load balances sort of traffic, and it's a win-win. The customer still gets their ride in 5 minutes, and the driver gets a constant stream of fares, all thanks to data. So it's a really great win-win, and it really hits on the reliability. And then lastly, the trust. They have a dual rating system where they rate the drivers as well as the customers, and that drives sort of a mutual respect and almost a self-healing type of proposition where if both basically the top services rise to the top, and there are actual consequences if you don't score high in those metrics. So that builds that sense of trust and ultimately leads to more of a reliable service. So they're doing it quite well. Next one, Airbnb, another popular one. But their whole purpose is around neighborly love, and this sense of belonging. And that really taps into the mindset of the crowd economy and the shared economy and this feeling like a local and having more authentic experiences wherever you travel. That's true to, as far as trends go, people are, want to experience more experiences over things. And Airbnb is the one that's rising to the top, and now they're the largest hospitality brand. They bring that to life. What's true to Airbnb, the only way that's going to survive is keeping that community alive and that spirit of community. So there's obviously a lot of trust at play with that, going to other people's homes, opening your homes to other people, to strangers. They've got to have the ability to make that secure. So they do it in a few ways. The $1 million host guarantee is a big one. That's an incredible sort of insurance policy for people that are sort of on the fence if they want to open their house to strangers. So that's a great guarantee just from a pure trust standpoint. But then they also take it one step further and actually use data to inform this. They realized in the early days of Airbnb that some properties would get rented quite easily, and others would just not be very effective. And they'd see the drop-off of supply, and that's obviously a big concern. They have to have the rooms to make this a viable platform. So what they did is they actually created a free professional photography service for all of the hosts. So you just tap in, call up Airbnb, they come out with a professional crew and shoot your place to look fantastic. And it's a win-win. It helps create a beautiful experience for the customer, and they can really browse and almost get a sense of consistency as they evaluate different properties. But then it also makes the host's home look fantastic, and it drives more rentals. So it's a win-win there, and obviously it supports this notion of bringing people together in community. And then also they're very interesting in their search algorithms. And most search engines just look at the criteria and they do a quick match with what fits those variables. And what they do is they look at both what the renter's looking for as well as what the host is most likely to accept. So they look at behavioral patterns of when people actually, how much notice they want before they accept a renter, or maybe the days within the week. Sometimes you go Sunday to Sunday. People prefer that versus a Wednesday, Thursday type of situation. And what they can do is then filter and sort and prioritize the best matches. And they've seen incredible results just by changing that algorithm a bit to create that sense of community and perfect relevant pairs. They see much more engagement on the platform. So again, all of those things tied together really drive that value, that full holistic value up and drive to remarkable experiences. And then lastly, on Citi, for those of you who don't know, Citi's brand mission is to be a catalyst and an enabler of progress. And that comes to life in a variety of ways. It can obviously be in financial ways, but it can also be from a social impact standpoint. So Marshall actually mentioned it in his early address that we actually have a very exciting program happening in partnership with Parsons in the city of New York around designing for financial empowerment. And it's a great program focused here in the city around figuring out how to serve up financial services, make them more accessible and more effective for low-income New Yorkers. And that's coming to life in a pilot program focused on tax preparation services. Specifically, there's actually for lower-income New Yorkers, there's an ability to get free tax preparation services and quite a large rebate. But I believe the stat is 1 out of 5 people take advantage of it. So it's a big problem to solve. It's kind of a head scratcher, and the team, at Parsons and Citi in New York are working on that. It's an exciting program, and there's more online at, I think it's dfe.nyc. So you can check that out. But enabling progress, actually, we take it one step further too on the intelligence side. As we think about the bank of the future and what our role in the economy is, we see ourselves as much more of an enabler. As people become more empowered, as almost their banks themselves. And then all of the rise of the fintechs, the financial technology companies. There's a lot of disruptors out there. And our philosophy is that we don't want to defend ourselves against them, and we actually want to lean forward and enable them, because we see ourselves as almost a foundational fabric underneath all of these individual banks, if you will, the people, and these fintechs, and creating the connections between them. And we call that the financial graph. And that's what we're designing at Citi moving forward. We want to stand for the financial graph. And then lastly, trust. Obviously, trust in banking is huge, and security and keeping people's identity secure. And we're investing a lot in new forms of authentication, persistent authentication, and using biometrics, things like face recognition, voice recognition, touch, all those things to actually make it a more seamless customer experience, actually better for people just to be constantly logged in and connected to this financial graph, but also incredibly tight security. And if we can promise that to people and really deliver, that builds an incredible amount of trust within our customers, all with that broader mission of enabling progress. So if we can do that, we think we can create those ultimately remarkable experiences. So I just want to transition now just to think about, that's what remarkable experiences are, and that's what we want to create. But how do you do it, I think, is a big question. And that's something I've been focusing a lot on at Citi as I've joined, is how do we infuse design and service design into the company? How can we make Citibank a design-led company? That's a big brief in itself. And there's a massive transformation happening at the bank, which is great. And a lot of it comes down to 3 things. It's the 3 Ps. It's the people and how you organize them. It's the process that you put in place to enable great work. And it's the places, where the environments that they actually work in, and again, making them enabled and fun to work at, to get the best and brightest talent in to solve some of these exciting challenges, actually. So I'm going to go through those 3 Ps real fast. So the first one is around the people. And we've gone through an organizational change recently where we've designed a global studio network within Citi, focused solely on design and customer experience design. But we've organized people into what I call agile pods. And what that is 7-person teams. And if anybody knows the old Jeff Bezos quote around the 2-pizza rule, that's the meaning of the image back there. But it's 7-person teams that are multidisciplined, working together, co-located, all on the same goal. And that goal is an end-to-end journey, cross-channel. So, for instance, opening an account, for example, we take into account the branch experience versus the online experience versus mobile versus the type of account you're going through. The entire customer journey would be designed by a team like this, and you can see the players involved. You've got everything from design and UX to copywriting and engineering, doing the real craft work, but you've also got the strategists in there to do a lot of the upfront discovery and user research and usability work, and then of course a producer to really help bring it to life. All led by a team lead. And the idea is that you can stand up these pods, and it's a very scalable model, and then they can work with agile scrum teams to actually do the hardcore development. So we've started to stand this up, and we've seen incredible effect, both in just teamwork, cultural changes, and actually the speed and the quality of the work that's coming out. It's also it's borrowing on a lot of trends, just whether it's agency cultures or innovation labs. They're structured in a similar way, and we're actually implanting that into the bank. So when you have these teams all stood up, what's the process? That's the second P. What do we do to actually enable this great work and great service design? And we use design thinking. We're embracing it wholeheartedly as our official methodology. I'm sure many of the people in the room are very familiar with design thinking. It's a huge component of service design. And this is just the way we articulate it. We have a 4-phase, it's called the 4 I's. You have investigate, which is obviously upfront user research and discovery. We do co-creation, we do stakeholder interviews, ethnographic studies, a whole variety of different activities to ultimately build empathy with our customer. And then serve that up to the rest of the creative group, the rest of the design team, to start to ideate. And we do all of the classic divergent and convergent exercises to really come down to a great solution that we can put in front of customers as rapidly as possible. And we have our engineers on our team can actually do all the prototyping. So it's actually really rapid development. And then we implement. We have detailed design and development, and we do user testing, usability in our labs. And then obviously we iterate. So when we launch it, we test and learn. We really look at the analytics to see if it's moved the needle across a variety of different KPIs, and then that becomes the next brief, and it just loops and loops and loops. So you've got these agile teams working through the process of design thinking, and then the last P is the environments they sit in, the places. So this is a big initiative, but we're standing up design studios around the world in our core hubs. So New York is obviously a big one. That's where we're headquartered. But we also have a major presence in Mexico and Singapore. And we're standing up these design studios that are really, you can imagine, a pretty big culture shift for the bank. You can imagine what a bank environment would look like, and then where we're trying to take it. And even this is sort of a beta. I mean, this isn't even where fully we're going to go. But it's a matter of bringing the right equipment and the right tools so that people feel that they can create, unhindered creation. So that's a big move. That's for a bank that doesn't accept Macs, for example. It's an unsupported platform. You can imagine how difficult that is to build a design group. We've made progress, and now we've rolled out Macs, and we've rolled out the ability to keep stuff on the walls, and it's actually a big change, and it's actually affecting the culture at large. So as they see this new talent, this creative talent really focused on the customer coming in, and it has a massive effect. And it's creating massive change at the organization and how we think about customer experience design and remarkable experiences, and really getting out of our own way to produce it as quickly as possible. So interconnected global design studio network. So those are the ways we're thinking about it as Citi. It's exciting change, massive transformation happening there. But it's not just us. This is a slide pulled from John Maida's design and tech report that he. I'm sure you all know John Maida. I was lucky enough to work with him closely at eBay on doing a very similar thing, by the way, changing the culture at eBay to be more design-led. And he has this great stat here. Just he's tracked the development, or sort of the growth of design in the industry, and specifically, if you look on 2015, you can see so many brands and large corporations, including banks, that have acquired design studios. Or built a center of excellence within the bank, like Citi's doing. And it's massive growth. And it just shows that people are really embracing design. They understand the influence of it, and that design, is actually good business. So it's great for all of us in the room to see that this massive trend is happening, and some of the biggest old corporations are realizing they need to be design-led and really take service design to heart and create those remarkable experiences. So that's a great stat. And then I'll just end with this and hand it back to the next speaker, which is just an old quote, but it's more relevant than ever today, that good design is good business. So have a good conference, and thank you. you.